quick introduction. My name is Miranda Fleming. I've lived in Brighton for 15 years. And primarily I'm a film producer. I've actually also worked for Lighthouse for a couple of years, about 10 years ago. And I worked in the new changing digital landscape of film for the last 2 years because I was fed up of being an independent film producer and getting no revenue stream and hearing about how things were going to change, and they didn't seem to be changing. So I thought I would move over and get into the conversation and the world of the distribution, the ecosystem of new funding and distribution. And I think it started a couple of years ago when I was commissioned to write an R&D paper for Skillset about producers working in the film industry, whether their needs were to learn about how they no longer had to take the traditional route of distribution, because just for anybody who doesn't know, this will start film specific, but if anybody wants to say, hey, I'm an artist, so how does that work in relevance? The distribution models were all changing, and part of the R&D paper I sat down with 10 pretty big indie producers, and none of them knew about anything that was going on in America. And a few years ago in America, the models started to change. They had to change because filmmakers don't have subsidised, they don't have BFIs, they don't have what Europe funds, etc. And so when films were just not recouping 3 years ago, their money dried up. So they had to find a way to find new money. And then within that, and that was actually crowdfunding. So Americans were really early adopters of crowdfunding, and crowdfunding has been big in America for a few years. And if you sit, I've just been to Rotterdam, and I sat with a table of New York producers who'd all produced 2 or 3 features, and if you ask them about crowdfunding, yeah, whatever, well, I crowdfunded all of those 3 films. So it's way into the American indie filmmakers' thinking, and it's just coming into the UK and the European thinking, so it's an incredibly exciting time. And it sits very relevantly that our distribution models are now changing in the UK. Big sales agents have left their jobs in the last few months, fed up of selling dead dogs, whatever the expression is, to the filmmaker and to other territories across Europe. So some really interesting players are coming into effect, and there are now consultancies. So before a film has to think, the problem is you'll still have traditional thinking, so then you'll still have your investors going, oh, I'm only going to give you the money if you get a distributor to sign. And it's like, oh no, the minute a distributor signs, you've pretty much lost all of your revenue and your profit as a filmmaker and as a producer. And as an investor, it's going to take a big chunk of anything you could have got back on your film. So anyway, it's changing. I was very lucky enough to come into the path of Indiegogo, and I've been around 2 films as a producer that have crowdfunded on Indiegogo, and the first one was a short film way back in 2010, and I just couldn't believe it. 3 people in America came in and gave us £4,000. It's like, who are you? That's just amazing. It doesn't quite happen that easily. I mean, funny enough then, I think there were so few films crowdfunding, it must have caught their attention, because it's not that easy, and you have to work a bit harder than that. But there's another documentary by an award-winning filmmaker in Brighton, and that I'm helping him with his distribution consultancy on at the moment. And his is another really interesting example. He's based in Brighton. His subject matter of his film is based in the south of France. He knew that that the subject of the documentary has a following in America, and he asked for $30,000 to just get him 2 years of time so he could go backwards and forwards to the south of France and make this documentary. And instead of getting $30,000, he got $50,000. And when you crowdfund, it's not only about the funding, it's about the data and finding your audience. And so what this filmmaker did is he looked at, you get a dashboard when you crowdfund, and he looked at his dashboard, and 98% of that crowdfunding had come in from American funders. and that was 2 years ago. So for him, that data is incredibly important. So for example, he came to me and said, oh, what do you think about producing the film? And I said, I think you're missing a real trick. I think your producer should be sitting in New York. This is a, you know, and so all of this drives a filmmaker, an artist, a creator to think about who is actually your audience. And it makes you think about it at concept because they'll be your funder. So that's all the models. So a little bit about Indiegogo as a crowdfunding platform. There are two big ones, I think we all know, and Indiegogo is one of the largest. It certainly is globally in its reach. We had a huge investment round from Richard Branson last year, which is part of why I'm here in the UK to support UK and European films and any other creative projects. So part of that is realising that it's growing globally, and to sort of be here with artists, with filmmakers, to see what we can do to help them with their campaigns. Because as I said, it's not easy, but even just a half-an-hour consultation and a quick look at your page can make the world of difference. And I just get so saddened when I had one last week with somebody who works for a huge film producer in London going, we've raised 50p and what happens on our crowdfunding? And I looked at the campaign, it's like, you haven't even put a pitch film up. You cannot expect anybody to pull any money out of your pocket without putting a pitch film up. So there are things that, and again, if you go to America, they know all of this. It's in there, they've been educated, they've seen it, and their standard of film, probably everything I'm going to show you today is American, because I think very shortly there'll probably be a pitch film prize, because these pitch films are getting very, very creative. It's a competitive market, and you've got to make a film or a bit of art or whatever you're creating and watch something and think, I want to be part of that. I know you're going to do it, and this is hugely exciting. And on that note, I'm going to play you my favourite pitch film of the year.
Hello, I'm Stick Girl. Welcome to my world. We're making Window Horses, an animated feature where I have my first dramatic role as Rosie Ming, a young woman who is looking for her father, at a poetry festival in Iran. It's a film about staying open, being curious, and building bridges between cultures and generations through the magic of poetry. I think it's a good message to get out there. I think this is the perfect time to do it. And I think that Indiegogo and you are the perfect partners to help make it happen. I'm very excited. We've been working for several years on developing this project, and now we're ready to cast and animate. It's a really independent piece written and directed by Fleming, who I've worked with for several years. I think she's great. And other Canadian indie animators. Kevin Langdale is the main designer and is animating me as I speak. And now Sandra Oh has come on to help, and she's going to play me. I'm so excited. Hello, Sandra Oh.
Hello, I am so excited that you asked me to play you as Rosie Ming in Window Horses. Thank you.
Are you kidding? I'm so glad you said yes. Now, will you tell people what got you so excited about this project?
Well, to work with you, of course. Actually, we've been trying to work together for years now, and I'm so happy that it's finally happening. And the animation is so beautiful. When you sent it to me, I just thought the animation and the music and the poetry was so beautiful, and the graphic novel. When I read the graphic novel, Window Horses, I wept because it touched me so deeply, and it was so personal to me, because I'm just like you, and I feel like I'm just like Rosie Ming. I'm a product of many cultures, and I remember what it was like being in my 20s and filled with hope and confusion and wanting to kind of bust out of a sheltered life. And I think poetry for Rosie is really the answer. So I want to be a part of that. I want to help bring Rosie to life.
Wow, I'm humbled.
I'm so grateful.
How are you going to play me?
Oh, how am I going to play you? Well, first I'd start out by rewatching a lot of your short films. You have wonderful short films, and I would kind of investigate your vocal quality, and I would revisit the poetry of Rumi and Hafez that has, touched me greatly in my life. And I would think about the character of Rosie Ming, like what will her experiences be? Who will she meet? And kind of wonder questions like that. And hopefully we'll have the help of a bunch of animators who will turn me into you. I'm really, really excited. So come join me as Rosie Ming, Stick Girl. This is an invitation to poetry, to culture, to finding your own voice. So be a part of Window Horses. Help us bring it to life. Thank you.
So that's Window Horses. And so if we look at their page, they raised $81,000. And I'm not surprised. I did that and I bought a flip book. But you just can't, you know, if you're a film lover, I think that makes you fund. So the other thing just to let you know about is you can go home tonight and give this team some money. It's in demand, which is a new service that Indiegogo have got, which I think is fantastic. Which means when you come to the end of your campaign, normally 4 to 6 weeks is the length of a campaign, you go into in demand, and then that you can stay open so long as you hit your goal. If you didn't hit your goal, you can't go into demand. But if you did hit your goal, you can stay in demand for as long as you like. So it can take you through the production. Rosie Ming and these guys might be back when they get into post, and then they'll sort of repost on this page, and so it doesn't come down in effect. And I think this whole in demand is very interesting because Indiegogo, the reason I chose it as a film producer is it's a very, very forward-thinking platform. It's not only thinking about crowdfunding, it's thinking about the distribution of whatever is funded on there. And to that end, it was announced that Sundance, that Indiegogo has a partnership with Vimeo, and Vimeo will now have Indiegogo crowdfunded films on its own discoverability section on their VOD platform, and Indiegogo towards the end of the year will also have the link through as a VOD platform on our platform. And you can see there everything, you know, that is incredibly forward thinking of a crowdfunding platform and a VOD platform starting to have a partnership like that. And films that crowdfund on Indiegogo will have a through-line introduction through to Vimeo, who have just launched a Creators Fund, and they potentially can match whatever the film raised on their Indiegogo campaign. So again, it's all exciting, and it's all the future about crowdfunding and distribution. What else to talk about very quickly? Yeah, so I guess case studies, just to talk about really quickly. Sort of short films and arts films, and I was on a panel in Rotterdam, and we talked about the brand of the filmmaker and the artist, and to perhaps not look like I've made this one short film, I'm going to crowdfund, and then I'm going to walk away and do something totally different in 18 months. You should perhaps be thinking, I'm a producer and I'm going to start building an audience for myself as a producer. So I intend to crowdfund this short film, but I then intend in 6 months to crowdfund my next short film, and I can then cross all my channels from one film to the next and keep my audience growing as a film producer. So of course the filmmaker has their own channel, and that might be the same channel because they continue working, but it's kind of why, particularly for shorts, it's really important that you don't just think, I'll hire somebody to run this, which a lot of campaigns do in film. I think it's really important to find your audience, know your audience, and keep that data. Of course, when you're running a campaign that's over £30,000, it becomes a much bigger beast, and you might want to, it's a bit like having a production, and you might want to have a production assistant. So other things, yeah, so what films crowdfund well? I think there are sort of different types. In a way, it's the same theory that you're talking to a film financier. So if you go to them and go, I've got nobody in this, it's not a very good team, and it's not really very exciting at all, no one wants to finance you, and a crowd won't want to finance you either. So there are two different kind of, I feel anyway, sort of ways to get good funds in through crowdfunding. One is, if you cast the star, and I'll just show you here, we had a short film in the summer with an unknown director. that his busy mate was Benedict Cumberbatch. So Benedict is in the pitch film, and he says, this director's brilliant, and he is a really good director, and I'm going to be in the film. And they asked for £25,000, and that's what they got in just over 4 weeks. I think they got that in 6 weeks. So I'm very interested in the UK to see what would that look like, a feature version with a star like Benedict Cumberbatch in it. And I think that hasn't been done yet, but I'm open to suggestions. So that's one thing. The other thing is that you cast your film in a more online skewed way. So there are certain people that traditionally might not have meant anything to a film financier, but for crowdfunding and new models of distribution, if you have one of the new actors or actresses who are in Skins and they've got a really big Facebook page, that's potentially huge for your campaign. So supporters and social media networks are really, really important for numbers. And we do actually believe that those numbers work better than traditional media. So imagine you're reading something about a campaign in The Guardian. That's a few steps to go from reading something in a newspaper to walking across, turning on your computer, loading up. And actually what is a much better conversions rate is click, click, click. So it's online, get the information, be told about this film, and you just with one click, you're up on the Indiegogo page. With one click, on PayPal, you're paying for it. So that is the most efficient way that you would want to see your audience being captured and then come into funds. So for example, let's say the person doing your music is a big UK rapper who's got 25 million on his Facebook page. That's huge for a crowdfunding campaign, because he's only going to have to start talking about it on Twitter and offer to give you one Facebook post once a week, and it will be incredibly effective. It will be driving those people. So there's a feature doc up at the moment, and I think just one tweet from Caitlin Miranda drove about, it's going over the £10,000 mark just around that time of that tweet. So it is incredibly powerful, all of that social media. The third model I want to talk to you about is YouTube, and it's giveaway, and it's building an audience online on YouTube. And the theory that, which has been a theory for, it's a business model that sits within the online industry, that if you give away for a certain amount of time, and then you draw your audience to you by giving away this content, and that audience is in big numbers because you haven't charged for any of that content. And then when you want to do something substantial and you ask that fan base to pay, they come in and pay. And I think the best example was last summer. It was Simon's Cat in the UK. Simon's Cat had been giving out their small 1-minute animations on YouTube. He's a British animator, and he'd been giving them away on YouTube for about 2 years. And they were hitting, some of them have hit 30 million. I mean, he's huge now across the world. But he did a call out to the fans. He said, I want to pay my staff this year. I want to make this 11-minute film. I want to make it in colour. I want to make it properly. And they got it. They got £310,000. And when you look at the dashboard, 50% of that is from the US, which is quite interesting. Because again, when you have got a project, if you have got channels or fans in the US, which obviously YouTubers do because they're online, that funding is pretty substantial in America still. And but this had a great UK fan base as well. How are we doing for time? Oh, and I just thought I'd tell you a little story about a short film, because this is the first short I did when I arrived at Indiegogo. It's called A Horse Called Oz. And they came to me, they were two, struck me as very, very savvy filmmakers. They've only made one short, they're not in anybody's network, they've never been commissioned by anybody in the UK. But in my last talent jobs, I probably would have said, you'd be up for being funded for a subsidised short. Anyway, this was their second short film. It was called A Horse Called Oz because they met a homeless girl in Soho who had told the director about her story about a horse which she called Oz as a child. And it's this really, really beautiful, incredible story. And I'll play you the pitch film very quickly, but it's the reason why I really like this story is They started with literally nothing. They did friends and family first. They came to me saying, I think we would like £12,000. I said, £12,000, that's kind of the top end of what a short gets in the UK if you haven't got a big star in it or something that's interesting. Why don't we go for, I think I suggested £7,500. Let's go for £7,500. Let's really, really work at the network. So let's think, who is going to support you on this? Who has got millions of followers who will offer to tweet about you every week? Now, and I thought this is a good example because this is how you should be thinking and breaking it down. So the filmmakers were like, okay, so we start out, this is a story inspired by a homeless girl that they met in Soho. Right, that's your niche audience. Your niche audience are the people who want this story to be told because they care about this subject. So who is that? We have a little brainstorm. It's the big issue. It's shelter. It's no. So it's that world. So they work really hard over a week. They telephone, they get in contact through Twitter and whatever to all of those charities who go, yeah, of course, we'll give you a tweet. Yeah, that's fine, we'll give you a Facebook post. So they build it and they build it. They then end up, there's an article on Evening Standard about them. It's all about London now. It's getting a focus, homeless issue. They're on London Live because it's all been picked up. We're talking niche, finding more and more people interested in their story. And that's pretty much how they got this short film financed. I think filmmakers and film lovers did come into it at a certain point. The reason why I want to add at this point, at the end of this story, because I think it's a lovely story, is I think the reason why even short filmmakers must crowdfund on global platforms is because these two filmmakers have done a call out about their film, and when they hit 7,500 on their, I think a week before the end of their campaign. And then, in that last week, it started being picked up by Americans. It got out into America. And I think that's because of the success of hitting £7,500. And in the last week, there we go, 2 people picked up the executive producer credit, which is why that took them to more than 7,500. And those 2 executive producers are American. They've never met them. So now they have walked off with not only £9,000, but they have got 2 executive producers in America who obviously are patrons. They like paying for films and for filmmakers. And for me, that's a much bigger picture than them just getting the money. And I think that's a great story. And actually, we're probably hitting 2/3. Do you want to just see a little bit of their pitch film? Because I think that's...
My name's Paul Young, and I'm the writer-director of A Horse Called Oz. This is a fictional story inspired by an experience that happened to me about a year ago when I met a girl called Naomi.
The film is based on the true story of a young woman who has spent several years sleeping rough on the streets in London. Prior to ending up on the street, she had worked as a horse riding instructor in Devon, where she had grown up.
I was curious to know how someone so young could have ended up in such a desperate situation. She spoke eloquently, articulately, seemed very intelligent.
Nothing about her story was as I expected. She's now off the streets and step by step getting back to a normal life. I interviewed her over several months about her experiences on the street, other people she had met sleeping rough, and began thinking about the idea of telling her story through a short film. Using the backdrop of the city, the story takes place in the space of a single night and begins with the chance encounter between 2 strangers. A young man who works as an advertising copywriter has his night swept out from under him, and he unwittingly meets a young woman living on the street who spends her days volunteering at the local stables and her nights sleeping in a church graveyard, much like Naomi in real life.
Now, when I first floated the idea to Naomi of making a film based on how we met, her initial reaction was, well, who would want to see a film about a homeless girl? Wouldn't that just seem really depressing? While that could easily be the case, I think it's through this strange contrast of these 2 unlikely characters that we're led into Naomi's story and that this friendship unfolds in front of us. It's not a film rubbing your nose in the misery of homelessness for half an hour, and it's definitely not a film making some kind of sweeping statement about homelessness in general. Instead, it's a story about 2 strangers who have a chance encounter.
And the result is a surreal mix of dark humor and drama.
The idea of the horses is very much a symbol in the film in the same way that it was for Naomi in real life. It's the idea of this pure, natural thing in contrast to the backdrop of the city. The fact that she had grown up with horses and has this affinity for being a horse trainer, it became a bit like a lifeline for getting out of the situation that she was in. To put this project into perspective, a couple of years ago we made a film called The Glowing Hours. The film was selected at film festivals around the world and even got longlisted for an Academy Award. It was my first film and I'm very proud of it, but I think this project is very much a step up as a piece of storytelling. We'll be shooting entirely on location in London, using a lot of the same team who are behind The Glowing Hours. By supporting us, you'll be helping get the film into production. This is a project we're all really passionate about. Any pledge is welcome, so please click the green button. We're offering tons of rewards and incentives, which you can find down in the sidebar below. There's only one shot at this, and we'd love to have you involved. And just remember, you can keep up with us on Indiegogo, on Facebook and Twitter, and visit the website at ahorsecalladoz.com. My name's Paul Young. It's been great fun doing this, and we can't wait to make this film with you. Thanks for watching our video.
So that's A Horse Called Oz, and so just to let you know, they've finished filming, they're all ready, they're about to go into post, and that was, they finished at the end of last year, and that took them 4 weeks to crowdfund, 4 to 6 weeks. So yes, and when you make your pitch, you can just see here on this film, he is so passionate. He articulates his story. They've put music to it. It feels cinematic. You can imagine being that American sitting in America, thinking, I like this guy. I like this kid. I'm going to go and give him that £1,000 because I've got it. And that is what you need to make. Don't just film yourself with an iPhone, which is another reason why I'm here in the UK, to help people with their pitch films, because it's so important that you treat them literally beautiful quality and convey what kind of filmmaker you are. And I think that's it for me. I've left my cards there, just if anybody is thinking about crowdfunding, please contact me before you crowdfund, and I'd be very, very happy to have a conversation.